Hi, my name is Kelly Castle. You are watching Culinarily Speaking, and today I am sharing my favorite pie crust recipe. Hope you like it. For the dry ingredients, we are going to need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of white granulated sugar, half a teaspoon of fine sea salt, 4 ounces of cream cheese, and 4 ounces of unsalted butter, and those are both going to be as cold as possible. 1 tablespoon of vodka mixed with 2 tablespoons of ice water, and then we're going to need an additional 2 tablespoons for reserve, just in case we need it. The most important first step is to have all your ingredients mise en place. What this means is that you've gone through ahead of time and measured out everything that you would need in this recipe.
So we're going to be doing this recipe 3 different ways. The first recipe is with a pastry blender. So we're going to need to cut our cold butter and cream cheese into cubes and then toss them into the dry ingredients so all the sticky ends are covered in flour.
Take my handy dandy pastry blender and I'm pushing down on it. I'm not moving it side to side. If I see people going like this in the bowl, you know, using your pastry blender to rub butter in, that's a big no-no. You want to push it down, okay? Cut, cut, cut! Now, what I'm doing now is I've cut in a few times, and I want to make sure that all the butter and cream cheese bits are out of the tines of the the pastry blender, and making sure that they're all getting equally chopped up. So I just give them a little bit of a toss. It also coats the sticky ends of the fat with more flour. Also, I get to see how big my big chunks are because we want to get it until the big chunks are no bigger than your thumbnail. See? That'll work. Okay.
So we're going to make a well in the dry ingredients to slowly pour in the wet ingredients, which is vodka and water, with 2 tablespoons of water in reserve. By pressing the dough into a ball, you can see how much hydration is in there. This one needed some more water, so we're tossing some more in. Now, the water content is affected by a lot of different things, including the weather, the batch of the flour, the brand of the flour, and how much your fats have been processed into the dough itself already.
What you see me doing now is I'm searching out pockets of wet dough and exposing them to pockets of dry crumbs of dough, kind of in a fluffing method. Then I'm pressing it into a ball. Once it is in a ball, I can test it for stickiness by touching it. There we are. It's looking good. There we go. It's a little better. So I have a disc, and I'm going to flatten it a little bit with my hands. Just make sure that I am in control of where it goes.
Letting the dough relax in the fridge allows it to be more easily worked with, and it also provides a more delicate dough.
Now this is going to get put into the fridge. So the next method you guys might have heard of before. So it is the one where you actually grate your fats into the pie crust. Here we go, here's the frozen butter. Oh, you're a dream.
Just like in the last method, we're going to need to toss the fats into the flour just to make sure that they're all coated before we add the wets. One of the downsides with this one is that the fats will get very sticky very quickly because they have such a large surface area. One of the pros of doing your doughs this way is that you don't need that much equipment. Pretty much doing everything by hand. Now, the more you do by hand, the looser your doughs are going to be. Any mechanical interference is going to increase the absorbability of the dough, how much gluten is developed. You can see as I'm rolling it out how easily it pushes to the sides.
Butter, cream cheese. Yay!
Now, it seems across the internet that this method is the preferred method of making pie crust, and I can see why. It turns out a very consistent result, and it is fairly easy, not including the cleanup. The cleanup's probably the hardest part of this dough.
Just like with our other doughs, we're going to form it into a little packet and roll it out and label it, and then put it in the fridge for an hour.
The next step of this dough making is a technique I learned in laminating. We're going to be doing what's known as an envelope fold. So you need to roll out your dough into a long rectangle and fold it in thirds, like you were folding a piece of paper to fit inside an envelope. Now I like to trim my edges just to make things a little bit more consistent when we're going to be rolling it out next time. Then we're going to be folding our parchment around our dough to keep its rectangular shape when we press it out with the rolling pin. Now you'll want to let it rest again. For this test in baking, I'm rolling out the dough to 1/8 of an inch thick. And I decided to do some apple turnovers because it's fall and I love apple turnovers, especially these Granny Smiths I got from the farmer's market. Now I'm rolling them in some flour, sugar, spice mixture. I'm keeping it to the middle of the turnover and fitting over the sides. And I needed a little bit more filling in there just to make it look fleshed out. And of course I have to have a little vent hole, so I'm cutting in an X. You can cut in whatever shape you like, a circle, a heart. And I'm using the tines of a fork dipped in a little flour to press the edges together. And to make a clean appearance, I'm just trimming away the excess edges with a butter knife. Here are our testers ready to go into the oven.
Brush over with heavy whipping cream and sprinkle over with turbinado sugar. They're baking in the top third of the oven at 375 degrees, and they're going to be baking for about 30 minutes, give or take 5. So here we have the food processor. This is the grater, and this is the hand blended. So each of these methods had their own personalities. With the pastry blender, it came the flakiest, and it's my personal favorite. With the food processor, it was the most defined dough, and it held its shape. And it was also the most consistent. Now the thing with the hand grater method, it was the easiest to work with, and it tasted fine, but on this dough with cream cheese, probably wasn't the best choice. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation, and this has been a Culinarily Speaking production. Thank you.